The great hall of the Galactic Council was filled with noise and fear. 12 different alien species sat in their special seats, talking loudly about the terrible news they had just heard. The Velkari Empire had sent a message that made everyone afraid. Ambassador Hyunki from Earth sat quietly in his small chair. He was a calm man with gray hair and steady eyes. Around him, the other aliens were making loud sounds of worry. The tall green Velkari had given all the species in the galaxy a simple choice. Give up the mining rights to the Kepler 442 star system or face their huge war fleet. The reptile-like Thakari were hissing and showing their sharp teeth. Their leader, a female with red scales, was speaking fast in their strange language. She was telling everyone that the Thakari could send 50 ships to fight. But 50 ships seemed very small when the enemy had 300. The crystal beings called Lumineth were glowing with dim, sad colors. Their bodies looked like living diamonds, but now they were almost dark with fear. Their speaker was making musical sounds that meant they were very scared. They could only send 20 ships, and those ships were not built for fighting. The blue-skinned Altarians were arguing among themselves. They had long arms and big eyes, and they kept waving their hands as they talked. Their commander was saying they could bring 80 ships, but they needed 2 weeks to get them ready. The problem was that the Velkari fleet was already moving toward the Kepler 442 system. In the center of the hall, the council president stood on a high platform. He was from the Zenthari species, which looked like tall humans, but with purple skin and 4 arms. His name was difficult for humans to say, so everyone called him President Vor. He was trying to keep order, but it was hard when everyone was so afraid. The Velkari have 300 ships, President Vor said in his deep voice. Their fleet includes 5 dreadnought battleships and 50 heavy cruisers. Our intelligence says they will reach Kepler 442 in 10 days. The hall became even more noisy. The insect-like Krillians were clicking their mouth parts, which meant they were very upset. Their ships were fast, but not strong. The plant-based Verdani were making rustling sounds like wind through leaves. They were peaceful people who did not like war at all. Hyunki watched all of this noise and fear. He had been Earth's ambassador for 5 years. In that time, he had learned that most alien species were quick to panic when faced with danger. Humans were different. They liked to think before they acted. The Velkari were the biggest bullies in the galaxy. They were strong, warlike, and mean. Their empire controlled over 200 star systems. They had been taking planets and resources from weaker species for many years. Now they wanted the Kepler 442 system because it had rare metals that were worth billions of credits. "We must work together," shouted the Thakari leader. "If we combine all our fleets, we might have 400 ships. That could be enough to fight them." But everyone knew this was not true. The Velkari ships were bigger and had better weapons. Even with more ships, the combined fleets would probably lose badly. President Vor raised all 4 of his arms to get attention. "We need to hear from every species. What can each of you contribute to defend Kepler 442? One by one, the alien leaders spoke. The numbers were not good. The Altarians could send 80 ships. The Thakari had 50. The Krillians could bring 70, but they were small and weak. The Lumineth only had 20, and they were not fighters. Other species had even fewer ships. When all the numbers were added up, the combined fleet would have about 350 ships. It sounded like a lot, but most of them were old or small. The Velkari had 300 ships, but they were all modern warships with heavy weapons and strong shields. The aliens kept talking and arguing. Some wanted to surrender right away. Others wanted to fight even if they would lose. A few suggested asking for help from other galaxies, but that would take too long. Finally, President Vor looked toward the human section. "Ambassador Hyunki, what does Earth contribute to this defense?" The hall became very quiet. All the aliens turned to look at the small human delegation. There were only 3 humans in the entire hall, while other species had 10 or 20 representatives. Hyun-Ki stood up slowly. He was not tall compared to most aliens, but he stood straight and proud. His voice was calm and clear when he spoke. The Terran Federation will send 1 vessel. For a moment, nobody made any sound. Then the hall exploded with noise. Some aliens were laughing. Others were making angry sounds. The Thakari leader hissed so loudly that it hurt to hear. "1 ship?" shouted the Altarian commander. "Did you say 1 ship?" "That is correct," Hyun-Ki replied calmly. "1 vessel?" The laughter got louder. Even some of Earth's allies seemed shocked. The Krillian ambassador was clicking rapidly, which meant he thought it was a joke. The Lumineth were flashing confused colors. President Vor tried to restore order. "Ambassador Hyun-Ki, surely you mean 100 ships, or perhaps Earth will send 1 fleet group?" "No," Hyun-Ki said clearly. "Earth will send exactly 1 vessel to defend Kepler 442. This time, the laughter was mixed with anger. The Thakari leader stood up, her red scales bright with rage. "Is this a joke to you, human? We face destruction, and you mock us with offers of 1 tiny ship?" Da-Eun, the woman sitting next to Hyun-Ki, leaned over to whisper something urgent in his ear. She was Earth's fleet coordinator and knew exactly how many ships humans had. She seemed worried about what Hyun-Ki was saying. But Hyun-Ki just nodded and spoke again. "The Terran Federation will contribute 1 vessel. That is our final decision." The Altarian commander was so angry that his blue skin turned purple. "Your species has over 200 ships in your fleet. We have seen them. Why do you send only 1? "Our reasons are our own," Hyun-Ki answered. This made the aliens even more angry. The Krillians thought humans were being selfish. The Verdani were disappointed because they had considered humans to be friends. Even the peaceful Lumineth were flashing upset colors. President Vor looked very tired. "Ambassador, with respect, 1 human ship will not make any difference against 300 Velkari vessels. Are you certain this is Earth's final position?" Hyun-Ki looked around the hall. He saw fear, anger, and disappointment on many alien faces, but his expression did not change. "Earth will send 1 vessel," he repeated for the 4th time. "We suggest that other species do what they think is best for their own people." The meeting broke up in chaos. Alien representatives were talking loudly to each other. Some were making emergency calls to their home worlds. Others were starting to discuss surrender terms. As the humans left the hall, they could hear the aliens talking about them. Most of the talk was not kind. Some aliens called humans cowards. Others said they were selfish and only cared about themselves. A few suggested that Earth had finally shown its true nature. The news spread quickly across the galaxy. Within hours, every major news network was reporting the story. "Humans abandon galaxy in crisis" was one headline. "Earth sends token ship," while others prepare for war was another. Military experts on dozens of worlds were giving their opinions. Most of them said that Earth had made a terrible mistake. Some thought humans were afraid and trying to hide it. Others believed that Earth was planning to make a deal with the Velkari behind everyone's back, but Hyun-Ki did not seem worried about what others thought. As he walked back to the human embassy, he looked calm and confident. Da-Eun was still, trying to understand why he had made such a strange announcement. "Sir," she said carefully, "are you sure about this decision? The other species are very angry with us." Hyun-Ki stopped walking and looked up at the alien sky. 3 moons were visible in the purple twilight. "Da-Eun, sometimes the right choice is not the popular choice. Trust me on this." That night, as the alien species held emergency meetings and prepared their fleets for a hopeless war, Earth began its own preparations. But these preparations were very different from what anyone expected. In secret facilities across human space, engineers and technicians were working on something that would soon change everything. The galaxy thought it knew what humans were capable of. Very soon, they would learn how wrong they were. The Luna shipyards orbited Earth's moon like a metal city in space. Thousands of workers moved through the vast construction bays every day, building ships for humanity's growing fleet. But today, all attention was focused on one special dock that had been closed to visitors for 3 years. Minho walked through the sealed corridors of Dock 7 with quick steps. He was the chief engineer of the most secret project in human space. His team had been working day and night for months, and now their work was almost finished. The ship that sat in the dock was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The vessel was called Retribution, and it did not look like other human ships. Most human vessels were smooth and curved, designed to move fast through space. But Retribution was different. It was angular and brutal-looking, covered in thick armor plates that made it look more like a flying fortress than a spaceship. Minho stopped in front of a huge window that looked into the main construction bay. The ship was enormous, almost as big as a Velkari dreadnought. But where alien ships were built for speed or to carry many fighters, Retribution was built for one purpose only. Every piece of its design was meant to destroy enemy ships. "Sir, the final systems check is complete," said a young technician who approached Minho. Her name was Hyejin, and she had been working on the ship's power systems for 2 years. "All 8 primary weapons are ready for testing." Minho nodded. "Good. What about the armor?" "Triple-layered reactive armor with energy dispersal fields," Hyejin reported. "The outer layer can absorb direct hits from battleship cannons. The middle layer spreads the energy across the entire hull. The inner layer protects the crew compartments. This was technology that other species did not have. Human scientists had spent decades studying alien weapons and finding ways to defend against them. The result was armor so strong that even the most powerful enemy guns would have trouble getting through it. Captain Jae-sung entered the observation area. He was a tall man with serious eyes and short black hair. He had commanded human warships for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like Retribution. The ship was both beautiful and terrifying. "How long until we can launch?" he asked Minho. 6 hours for final preparations," the engineer replied. "We need to load the ammunition and top off the reactor fuel. After that, she's ready to go." Jae-sung looked at the ship and felt a mix of pride and worry. Pride because humans had built something amazing. Worry because he knew what this ship was designed to do, and the responsibility was enormous. His crew was already on board making their own preparations. They were all volunteers who had been specially chosen for this mission. Each one knew that they might not come back alive, but they also knew how important their job was. So Min, his first officer, was on the bridge running system tests. She was a smart woman who had graduated at the top of her class from the Naval Academy. Her job was to coordinate all the ship's systems during battle. She had studied the Velkari fleet for months, learning their tactics and weaknesses. In the weapons control room, Wu Jin was checking the massive guns that made Retribution so special. These were not ordinary ship weapons. They were magnetic, acceleration cannons that could fire projectiles at incredible speeds. Each gun was as big as a small building and required its own fusion reactor to power it. The projectiles were made of tungsten, one of the hardest metals known. When fired at 30% of light speed, these projectiles could punch through any known armor. The impact energy was equal to a nuclear bomb, but much more focused. Wu Jin had trained for 2 years to operate these weapons. He knew exactly how much power each shot required and how long it took to reload. In a battle, there would be no second chances. Every shot had to count. Yi Jun, the navigation officer, was plotting their course to Kepler 442. The journey would take 3 days, through hyperspace. His job was to make sure they arrived at exactly the right place and time. If they came out of hyperspace too close to the enemy fleet, they might be destroyed before they could fight back. If they were too far away, the enemy might escape. The route he had chosen would bring them out of hyperspace directly in front of the Valkyrie formation. It was a bold move that would surprise the enemy, but it was also very dangerous. They would be outnumbered 300 to 1. Boram, the chief engineer aboard the ship, was in the reactor room checking the massive fusion engines that powered Retribution. The ship needed enormous amounts of energy to operate its weapons and shields. The reactors were so powerful that they could supply electricity to an entire city. But the most important systems were the 8 weapon reactors. Each cannon had its own fusion plant because firing the guns required so much energy. When all 8 cannons fired at once, Retribution would be using more power than most space stations. Boram had designed safety systems to prevent the reactors from overloading. If too much energy was drawn too quickly, the ship could destroy itself. Everything had to be perfectly balanced. News crews from around the galaxy had gathered at Luna to watch Retribution launch. Most of them thought they were documenting humanity's last desperate attempt to help defend Kepler 442. The reporters were making jokes about sending one ship against an entire fleet. This appears to be more of a symbolic gesture than a real military contribution, said one Altarian news anchor. The human ship, while impressively armored, is still just one vessel against 300. A Krillian military expert was even more critical. Humans have always been too proud for their own good. This ship will be destroyed in the first few minutes of battle. It's a waste of life and resources. But the human news teams were more careful with their words. They had been told by their government that this mission was classified. They could report that a ship was being sent, but they could not discuss its capabilities or weapons. Captain Jae-sung held a brief meeting with his senior officers before launch. The 30 crew members of Retribution gathered in the main briefing room. The room was small compared to those on other ships because Retribution did not need a large crew. Most of its systems were automated. "We all know why we're here," Jae-sung said to his crew. "The Valkyrie think they can bully the galaxy into giving them whatever they want. Today, we're going to show them that some people will not be bullied." Chang Min, the tactical officer, raised his hand. "Sir, what are our rules of engagement? Do we try to disable their ships or destroy them?" It was a good question. Disabling enemy ships would be more merciful, but it would also be much harder to do. Retribution's weapons were designed to completely destroy targets, not just damage them. "Our job is to stop the Valkyrie fleet," Jae-sung replied. "We will use whatever force is necessary to complete that mission. If they surrender, we will accept. If they fight, we will destroy them." Yoon-ji, the communications officer, looked worried. "Captain, there will be thousands of Valkyrie crew members on those ships. Are we really going to kill so many people?" Jae-sung's expression was serious. "The Valkyrie have killed millions of innocent people over the years. They have enslaved entire species and destroyed worlds that would not submit to them. Today, they learn that actions have consequences." The crew understood. This was not just about defending one star system. It was about showing the galaxy that bullies could not win simply by being bigger and stronger. Minho's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All stations, this is engineering. We are ready for launch in 1 hour. All crew members should be at their battle stations." Outside the ship, the massive dock doors were beginning to open. The darkness of space waited beyond, filled with stars and dangers. Soon, Retribution would be among those stars, carrying humanity's answer to the Valkyrie threat. The ship's computer systems came online with a low hum. Artificial intelligence programs began monitoring thousands of sensors and preparing for combat. The weapons charged with energy, and the armor plates shifted into their final positions. Captain Jae-sung walked to the bridge and sat in his command chair. Around him, his officers took their positions at their control stations. Everyone was quiet and focused. They knew that in a few days, they would either be heroes or dead. "All stations report ready," So Min announced. "We are cleared for departure. Jae-sung looked at the main screen, which showed the busy space around Luna. Soon they would leave all of this behind and travel to a distant star system where a war was waiting. "Take us out," he ordered. The massive ship began to move slowly out of the dock. Its engines glowed with blue fire as it accelerated away from the shipyards. Within minutes, it was just another dot of light in the dark sky, but this dot of light carried the hopes and fears of humanity. And soon, it would carry something else: the power to change the balance of the galaxy forever. The Velkari had no idea what was coming toward them. The Velkari fleet hung in space around Kepler 442 like a dark cloud. 300 ships of different sizes formed a massive crescent shape around the fourth planet of the system. At the center of this formation was the pride of the Velkari Empire, a battleship called Dominance. Admiral Kor stood on the bridge of Dominance, looking at the tactical displays with satisfaction. His fleet was the largest assembled in decades. The ships ranged from small destroyers to massive dreadnoughts, all armed with the latest Velkari weapons. Any sane enemy would surrender rather than face such overwhelming power. Kor was a typical Velkari warrior. He stood 8 feet tall with gray skin and bright yellow eyes. His species had evolved from predators, and they still thought like hunters. To them, the galaxy was divided into 2 groups: the strong who took what they wanted, and the weak who gave it to them. Admiral called his aide, a younger Velkari named Thex. "We have received reports from our intelligence network." The other, "Species are gathering their fleets to oppose us." Kor laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "How many ships are they bringing?" "Our spies report approximately 350 vessels from all the allied species combined," Thex replied. "But most are old or lightly armed." "And the humans?" Kor asked. He had fought human ships before and respected their technology, even if he thought humans were weak. Thex looked confused. "Sir, the humans are sending only 1 ship." Kor stopped laughing. "1 ship? Are you certain?" "Yes, sir. Our intelligence is very clear. The human ambassador announced that Earth would contribute exactly 1 vessel to the defense." This puzzled Kor. He knew humans had over 200 ships in their fleet. They were not the strongest military in the galaxy, but they were far from the weakest. Sending 1 ship made no sense. "Perhaps it's a trick," suggested Vex, the fleet's tactical officer. "Maybe they're planning to arrive with reinforcements after the battle begins." "No," Kor said slowly. "Humans are many things, but they are not liars. If they said 1 ship, then 1 ship is what they're sending." He paused, thinking. But why would they throw away a ship and crew for no reason? The answer to this question would have to wait. Right now, Kor had more important things to worry about. The mining operations on Kepler 442b were producing millions of credits worth of rare metals every day. The Velkari needed those resources to build more ships and expand their empire. The planet below was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents. It reminded Kor of his home world before the Velkari had turned it into a factory planet. But beauty meant nothing to him. Only strength and resources mattered. On the Bridge of Retribution, Captain Jae-sung studied the same displays that Admiral Kor was watching. But where the Velkari saw an easy victory, Jae-sung saw targets. "How long until we reach the system?" he asked Yi-jun. 18 hours, sir," the navigator replied. "We should arrive at the edge of the system tomorrow morning. Ship time." So-min was reviewing intelligence reports about the Velkari fleet. "Captain, their formation is designed to protect the mining operations while covering all approach routes. It's a good defensive position." "Any weaknesses?" Jae-sung asked. "Their flagship is in the center, surrounded by their best ships," Chang-min reported from the tactical station. "If we could destroy or disable it, the rest of the fleet might lose coordination." Jae-sung nodded. The Velkari were aggressive fighters, but they depended heavily on central command. Without their admiral giving orders, the individual ship captains might not work together effectively. Wu Jin, how are our weapons? Jae Sung asked. All 8 cannons are fully charged and ready, sir, the weapons officer replied. We have enough power for 40 full salvos, assuming we don't take damage to the reactors. 40 salvos meant 320 shots. In theory, that was enough to destroy the entire Velkari fleet. But theory and reality were often very different in space combat. Hyun Woo, the communications officer, was monitoring radio traffic from across the galaxy. Captain, the news networks are calling this humanity's last stand. Most of the experts think we're going to be destroyed. Quickly! Let them think that, Jae Sung said calmly. Underestimating your enemy is always a mistake. In the engineering sections of the ship, Bo-Ram was making final checks on the reactor systems. The 8 weapon reactors were running at perfect efficiency, ready to deliver massive amounts of energy to the cannons. She had designed multiple backup systems to keep the weapons working even if the ship took heavy damage. The main fusion drive was also ready for combat. Retribution would need to move quickly during the battle, changing position to avoid enemy fire while keeping its weapons pointed at targets. Back on Dominance, Admiral Kor was receiving updates from his scouts. Sir, long-range sensors have detected a single ship approaching the system. It matches the energy signature of human vessels. So they actually sent one ship, Kor mused. What class is it? Unknown, sir. The mass readings are unusual. It's much heavier than a typical human cruiser, but not as large as a dreadnought. Kor studied the sensor data. Something about the approaching ship bothered him, but he couldn't identify what it was. The energy signature was unlike any human ship in their database. Admiral, Vex said, should we send ships to intercept it before it reaches the main fleet? It was a reasonable suggestion. Destroying the lone human ship away from the main battle would be easy and would send a message to the other species, but Kor shook his head. No, let it come to us. I want the galaxy to see what happens when someone challenges Velkari power. This decision would soon prove to be a terrible mistake. On Retribution, the crew was preparing for battle. Each person had a specific job to do, and they had practiced their roles hundreds of times. But this would be their first real combat against overwhelming odds. Dong-hyun was in the targeting control room, calibrating the sensors that would guide their weapons. His job was to identify the most important enemy ships and assign them target priorities. The computer could track hundreds of ships at once, but human judgment was needed to decide which ones to shoot first. The Velkari flagship would be target number 1. The 5 dreadnoughts would be targets 2 through 6. After that, they would work their way through the heavy cruisers and destroyers. In the medical bay, Dr. Sun-hee was preparing for casualties. Retribution had excellent armor and shields, but no ship was invulnerable. If the enemy weapons got through, there would be wounded crew members who needed immediate treatment. The ship's artificial intelligence systems were also preparing for battle. Advanced computers would control many of the ship's functions during combat, freeing the crew to focus on tactics and strategy. The AI could fire the point defense weapons, manage the shields, and even control damage repair robots. Captain, So-min reported, all stations report ready for combat. We will reach the system perimeter in 12 hours. Jae Sung looked around the bridge at his crew. These 30 people were about to face the largest enemy fleet assembled in Seoul. Decades, but they showed no fear, only determination. Send a message to Earth, he ordered Hyun-woo. Tell them we are approaching the target and all systems are operational. The message would take several days to reach Earth due to the vast distances involved. By the time anyone back home heard from them, the battle would be long over. Admiral Kor was also sending messages, but his were going to Velkari High Command. The mining operation proceeds on schedule. Enemy resistance will be eliminated within hours of their arrival. Glory to the Empire. He was confident that his fleet could destroy any force the other species could assemble. 300 ships, with experienced crews and powerful weapons, should be able to handle 350 mixed vessels with inferior technology. The one human ship was hardly worth considering. It would probably try to make some heroic but pointless attack before being destroyed. Kor had seen such gestures before from species that refused to accept reality. What Admiral Kor did not know was that this particular human ship carried weapons that could rewrite the rules of space warfare. Technology that had been developed in secret over many years, tested in hidden facilities, and perfected by the best engineers humanity could produce. The Velkari thought they knew what humans were capable of. They had fought human ships before and won most of those battles. Human vessels were well designed but not exceptional. Human weapons were effective but not devastating. Human tactics were competent but not brilliant. But Retribution was not a typical human ship. It was the result of decades of preparation for exactly this kind of situation. A situation where humanity would be outnumbered and outgunned, where only overwhelming technological superiority could level the playing field. As the hours passed, both fleets prepared for the coming battle. The Velkari checked their weapons and reviewed their battle plans. The crew of Retribution did the same, but with one important difference. The Velkari were preparing to win a conventional space battle against inferior opponents. The humans were preparing to demonstrate that the age of conventional space warfare was about to end. In less than 12 hours, Admiral Kor would learn why Earth had sent only one ship, and the lesson would be written in fire and destruction across the darkness of space. Retribution dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system like a dark shadow against the stars. Captain Jae-sung sat in his command chair, watching the tactical display as hundreds of red dots appeared on the screen. Each dot represented a Velkari warship. "Contact," Changmin announced from the tactical station. "I count 297 enemy vessels in a defensive crescent formation around the fourth planet. 3 missing from our intelligence estimate," So Min noted. "Probably patrol ships that haven't returned yet." Jae-sung studied the enemy formation. The Velkari had positioned themselves well. Their flagship sat in the center, protected by rings of smaller ships. Heavy battleships covered the flanks, while fast destroyers patrolled the outer edges. "Distance to the enemy fleet?" Jae-sung asked. 12 million kilometers, Yi-jun reported. "We are currently outside their effective weapons range." On dominance, Admiral Kor was staring at his own displays with growing confusion. His sensors showed the human ship clearly, but something was wrong with the readings. "What is that thing?" he demanded from his sensor officer. "Unknown, sir. The mass readings suggest very heavy armor, much thicker than normal ship construction. Energy output is enormous, but we cannot identify the power source." Kor studied the tactical display. The human ship was approaching slowly, making no attempt to hide or use evasive maneuvers. It was coming straight toward his fleet like it had. Nothing to fear. "Sir," Thek said, "should we hail them and demand surrender?" "Yes. Let's give them one chance to save their lives." On Retribution, Haiyan Wu received the incoming transmission. "Captain, the enemy flagship is hailing us. They're demanding our immediate surrender." Jae-sung smiled grimly. "Tell them we'll respond shortly." "Wu-jin, status on the main batteries?" "All 8 cannons charged and ready, sir. Targeting systems are locked onto the enemy flagship. The weapons officer's console showed 8 green lights, each representing one of the massive magnetic acceleration cannons. Each gun was loaded with a tungsten projectile weighing several tons. When fired, these projectiles would accelerate to 30% of light speed. "Begin approach," Jae-sung ordered. "Take us into firing range." Retribution began moving toward the Velkari fleet. Its engines glowed bright blue as the ship accelerated. To the enemy, it must have looked like a suicide run. Admiral Kor watched the human ship approach with disbelief. "Are they insane? Do they think one ship can fight our entire fleet?" "Sir, They are not responding to our surrender demand, Thex reported. Then they have chosen death, Kor growled. All ships, prepare to fire. Target that human vessel and destroy it. The Velkari fleet began to move. 300 ships turned their weapons toward the approaching retribution. Laser cannons, plasma torpedoes, and particle beams all powered. Up, ready to turn the lone human ship into cosmic dust. Enemy fleet is targeting us, Changmin reported. Multiple weapon locks detected. Shields to maximum, Jae-sung ordered. All hands, prepare for incoming fire. The first Velkari shots lit up space like a deadly fireworks display. Beams of energy and clouds of projectiles raced toward retribution from dozens of ships. The distance was still long for most weapons, but some of the bigger ships had guns that could reach across millions of kilometers. The energy beams struck Retribution's shields in brilliant flashes of light. The shields held, but the power drain was enormous. More shots followed, each one testing the ship's defenses. Shields holding at 80%, Boram reported from engineering. But we're taking a lot of energy hits. Jae-sung watched the tactical display as his ship moved deeper into the enemy formation. The Velkari were good shots, and they had plenty of practice destroying enemy vessels. But Retribution's shields were unlike anything they had faced before. Distance to optimal firing range? He asked. 2 minutes, sir, Changmin replied. The enemy flagship will be in perfect position. For our first shot, Admiral Kor was becoming frustrated. His ships had been firing at the human vessel for several minutes, but it showed no signs of damage. Its shields were absorbing hits that should have destroyed any normal ship. What kind of armor does that thing have? He demanded. Unknown, sir. Our weapons are hitting but causing minimal damage. The ship's construction appears to be far more advanced than our intelligence suggested. Increase firing rate. Concentrate all fire on that ship. More Velkari ships joined the attack. The space around Retribution became filled with deadly energy as hundreds of weapons fired at once. The human ship flew through this storm of destruction like it was flying through a light rain. On Retribution's bridge, the crew worked calmly, despite the massive enemy fire. They had trained for this moment, and everyone knew their job. Optimal firing range in 30 seconds, Changmin announced. Jae-sung took a deep breath. Everything they had worked for came down to this moment. Woo Jin, you may fire when ready. The weapons officer's hands moved over his controls with practiced skill. Target locked. Cannon 1 ready to fire. Fire. The first magnetic acceleration cannon discharged with a sound like thunder. The tungsten projectile launched from the gun at incredible speed, accelerated by magnetic fields more powerful than any previous weapon. The projectile crossed the 12 million kilometers to the Velkari flagship in less than 2 seconds. It struck dominance exactly in the center of the ship's main hull. The battleship simply disappeared. One moment, Admiral Kor was standing on his bridge giving orders. The next moment, there was nothing but expanding plasma and debris where his ship had been. The tungsten round had hit with the force of a nuclear weapon, but concentrated into a space the size of a dinner plate. The explosion was so bright that it temporarily blinded sensors across both fleets. When the light faded, the pride of the Velkari Empire was gone. Target destroyed, Woo Jin reported calmly. Cannon 1 reloading. The Velkari fleet was in shock. Their flagship, their most powerful ship, had been destroyed by a single shot from an impossible distance. Ships that had been firing at Retribution suddenly stopped, their crews trying to understand what had just happened. But Jae-sung was not finished. Targets 2 through 8. Fire all remaining cannons. 7 more magnetic acceleration cannons fired in sequence. 7 more tungsten projectiles raced across space at relativistic speeds. 7 more Velkari ships ceased to exist. In the space of 30 seconds, 8 of the most powerful ships in the Velkari fleet had been completely destroyed. The remaining ships were in chaos, their command structure shattered, and their confidence broken. Yunji was monitoring enemy communications. Captain, The Velkari fleet is in complete disorder. Multiple ships are requesting new orders. Some are trying to retreat. Do not let them escape, Jae-sung ordered. Continue firing. Target the largest ships first. Retribution moved through the Velkari formation like a predator among prey. Its 8 cannons fired again and again, each shot destroying another enemy vessel. The Velkari ships tried to fight back, but their weapons could barely scratch the human ship's armor. Some Velkari captains tried to ram Retribution, hoping to damage it with their own destruction. But the human ship was too fast and maneuverable. It dodged the suicide attacks while continuing to fire its devastating weapons. "Sir," Dong-hyun called from the targeting station, "I'm tracking multiple enemy ships attempting to retreat from the system." "Let them go," Jae-sung decided. "We want survivors to tell others what happened here today." The battle continued for another 20 minutes, but it was not really a battle anymore. It was an execution. Retribution destroyed ship after ship with mechanical precision, while the Velkari fleet fell apart completely. When the firing finally stopped, the space around Kepler 442 was filled with the wreckage of what had once been a mighty fleet. Of the original 300 Velkari ships, only 37 remained. These survivors were fleeing the system as fast as their engines could carry them. "Cease fire," Jae-sung ordered. "All stations, report status." "All weapons functional," Woo Jin reported. "We used 43 shots. Remaining ammunition, 277 rounds. Shields at 60% and recharging," Bo-Ram added. "All reactors operating normally. No significant damage. To report." Chang-min was counting the destroyed enemy ships. "Confirmed kills, 260 vessels. 37 enemy ships have fled the system." Captain Jae-sung looked at the tactical display, now showing mostly empty space where a vast enemy fleet had been. In less than an hour, Retribution had destroyed the largest military force the Velkari Empire had assembled in decades. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," he ordered Hyeon-woo. "Tell them that Kepler 442 is secure and the Velkari threat has been eliminated." The message would take time to reach the other species, but when it did, it would change everything. The galaxy had just learned that humanity possessed weapons beyond anything previously imagined. And in the wreckage of the Velkari fleet, the age of conventional space warfare had come to an end. The news hit the galaxy like a shockwave. Within hours of the battle at Kepler 442, emergency meetings were being called on every major world. The impossible had happened. A single human ship had destroyed an entire Velkari fleet. On the Altarian homeworld, military commanders stared at intelligence reports that made no sense. General Koltar read the same paragraph 5 times before accepting what it said. 260 Velkari ships destroyed. 1 human vessel, no significant damage. The Krillian Queen summoned her entire war council to review the tactical data. The insect-like aliens clicked their mandibles in confusion as they watched. Computer simulations of the battle. No known weapon could cause such destruction with single shots. Even the peaceful Lumineth were frightened by what had happened. Their crystal forms dimmed as they realized that the quiet humans they had thought they knew possessed weapons that could destroy any fleet in the galaxy. But nowhere was the shock greater than on the Velkari homeworld. Emperor Zekmor stood in his war room, surrounded by his surviving admirals and generals. The room was silent except for the quiet humming of computers processing battle reports. "How many ships escaped?" the Emperor asked in a voice like grinding. "Stone." 37 vessels, my lord," replied Admiral Vorth, one of the few senior commanders who had not been at Kepler 442. "Most are damaged and will need extensive repairs. And Admiral Kor?" "Dead, my lord. His flagship was the first target destroyed." The Emperor was quiet for a long time. The Velkari Empire had not suffered such a defeat in over 200 years. In one battle, they had lost their most powerful fleet and their best admiral. "What do we know about this human weapon?" he finally asked. "Very little, my lord. The survivors report that the human ship fired projectiles at incredible speed. Each shot completely destroyed its target. Our weapons barely scratched their armor. Emperor, Zekmor looked at the tactical displays showing the positions of his remaining fleets. Even with their losses, the Velkari still had over 1,000 ships spread across their empire. But those ships were built to fight conventional enemies, not weapons that could destroy them with single shots. On Earth, the news was received with quiet satisfaction rather than celebration. In the secure conference room beneath the Pentagon, Earth's military leaders watched recordings of the battle with professional interest. Tae-hyun, the Secretary of Defense, nodded approvingly as he watched Retribution destroy the Velkari flagship. Excellent work. The weapon performed exactly as designed. General Park, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, was more cautious. We've shown our hand now. Every species in the galaxy will want to know how our weapons work. Let them wonder, Tae-hyun replied. The important thing is that they know we have them. At the Galactic Council, Ambassador Hyun-ki sat in the same seat where he had been mocked just days before. But the atmosphere in the chamber was very different now. Instead of laughter and dismissal, there was respectful silence and fear. President Vor called the emergency session to order with obvious nervousness. We have all received the reports from Kepler 442. The Velkari fleet has been destroyed by the human vessel Retribution. Ambassador Hyun-ki, can you provide details about this engagement? Hyun-ki stood slowly, just as he had before. But this time every alien in the chamber hung on his words. The Terran Federation vessel successfully defended the Kepler 442 system against Velkari aggression. The mining operations are secure and normal commerce can resume. But how? Demanded the Thakari representative. How did one ship destroy 300 enemies? Superior technology and tactics, Hyun-ki replied simply. The Altarian commander leaned forward in his seat. Ambassador, we need to understand the nature of these weapons. Are they a threat to other species? Hyun-ki's expression remained calm. Human weapons are only a threat to those who threaten human interests or the interests of our allies. This answer did not satisfy the aliens, but they were afraid to push too hard. The being who had been mocked for offering one ship was now the representative of the most powerful military force any of them had ever seen. Meanwhile, Captain Jae-sung and the crew of Retribution were heading back to Earth. The journey home would take several days, giving them time to write detailed reports about the battle and the performance of their weapons. So-min was analyzing the tactical data from the engagement. Captain, the magnetic acceleration cannons performed perfectly. No misfires, no targeting errors. The Velkari shields and armor provided no meaningful protection. Wu Jin was cleaning and maintaining his weapons systems. Sir, I recommend we increase ammunition storage on future ships of this class. We used less than 20% of our ordnance, but in a longer battle we might need more shots. These were good problems to have. The crew had faced overwhelming odds and won completely. But they also understood that their victory would change. Everything about how wars were fought in space. Dr. Sun-hee had treated only minor injuries during the battle. The Velkari weapons had been unable to penetrate Retribution's defenses enough to cause serious casualties. Captain, I recommend we prepare medical protocols for treating enemies who survive our weapon impacts. There weren't any this time, but there might be in future engagements. Back on the Velkari homeworld, Emperor Zekmor was meeting with his intelligence chiefs. They were trying to understand how humans had developed such advanced weapons without anyone knowing. My lord, reported Intelligence Director Morkex, our spies in human space detected no unusual military construction. These weapons appear to have been developed in complete secrecy. How is that possible? We have agents in human shipyards, human research facilities, even human government offices. Yes, my lord. But humans appear to have used facilities we didn't know existed. The ship that destroyed our fleet was built at Luna, but in a sealed construction bay that our agents could not access. The Emperor realized that his empire had seriously underestimated human capabilities. While the Valkyrie had been focused on building larger fleets of conventional ships, humans had been developing weapons that made conventional ships obsolete. "What are our options?" he asked his war council. "We could attempt to negotiate a peace treaty," suggested Admiral Vorth. "Offer to withdraw from all disputed territories and pay reparations." "We could try to ally with other species against the humans," proposed General Thakvor. "If we combine all non-human fleets, we might have enough ships to overwhelm even their new weapons." But Emperor Zekmor knew that both options were dangerous. A peace treaty would be seen as weakness by other Valkyrie leaders, possibly leading to civil war. And trying to organize an anti-human alliance would probably fail, since most species were now afraid to oppose Earth. On Earth, Tai Hyun was briefing the president about the broader implications of their victory. "Madam President, the immediate threat from the Valkyrie has been eliminated, but we need to prepare for the long-term consequences of revealing our capabilities." President Lee was a thoughtful woman who understood both military strategy and galactic politics. "What kind of consequences?" "Every aggressive species will now see us as a threat to be eliminated. Every peaceful species will want us as an ally. And everyone will try to steal our technology." "Are we prepared for that?" Taehyun smiled confidently. "We have 7 more ships of Retribution's class under construction. The first 3 will be ready within 6 months, and we're already working on the next generation of weapons." The president nodded. "Good. Make sure our allies know they can count on our protection, and make sure our enemies know the price of aggression." A week later, Ambassador Hyun Ki stood before the Galactic Council once again. This time, he carried a prepared statement from Earth's government. "The Terran Federation has reviewed the recent events at Kepler 442, he began. "We are pleased that the immediate crisis has been resolved with minimal loss of life among innocent populations." The chamber was completely silent. Every representative wanted to hear what Earth would say about its new status as the galaxy's dominant military power. "Earth has always preferred diplomatic solutions to conflicts. We sent 1 vessel to Kepler 442 because we believed 1 vessel would be sufficient to restore peace. We were correct." Hyun-ki paused, looking around the chamber at the alien faces watching him. "The Terran Federation hopes that this demonstration makes future military interventions unnecessary. We have no desire to conquer or control other species, but we will defend our allies and protect innocent populations from aggression." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a data pad. "Earth is prepared to share defensive technologies with peaceful species who request our assistance. We are also prepared to provide security guarantees to any world that renounces aggressive expansion." This offer sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Earth was not only showing its strength, but offering to share it with others. The age of strong species bullying weak ones was ending, but Hyun-ki was not finished. However, species that continue to threaten others should understand that the Terran Federation has 7 additional vessels under construction, each capable of the same performance as Retribution, and we are already developing even more advanced weapons. The message was clear. Earth had not shown its full strength at Kepler 442. The 1 ship that had destroyed the Valkyrie fleet was just the beginning.